All right, great. So I assume we're all ready. We're gonna test out this new format and see how it goes. If you don't like it for any reason that I'm floating in the corner, just let me know and I'll stop it.
I like
But
it.
nice. I like it too.
Very
Uh,
nice.
but I'm not the one seeing myself. So, um, all right. Well, I think we should just get going then, if that's okay. I don't see you, just for reference. So, if I ask you something, then just unmute and shout it out. Um, so let's uh, let's begin with a word of prayer. Dear God in heaven, we are grateful for yet another Sabbath that you have given to us all, for the opportunity to meet up again through Zoom as we do every week, and that we're able to take turns in presenting something that we find valuable, that we see as important for our salvation, our lives on this planet as we prepare for um, a different home, as we prepare to face the challenges that the Lions show will come in our way. I pray that this presentation will help us to prepare, help. May this presentation be a blessing to all those that will be listening, and may you grant the Holy Spirit to me so that I will be able to present clearly and in a cohesive manner. I pray that everyone will be blessed, and I pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Today, I hope you can just confirm that you see the screen now. That
We can see it.
great.
Yes, it says the power of habits. So,
Nice, nice, really nice. Okay, so spoiler alert, today we are going to talk about the power of habit. That is the title of my presentation, and I partly found inspiration from Isabel's presentation where she talked about cognitive biases and so on. And in general, I think it's quite important to understand uh, habits, because as we will learn, they constitute a big part of our character, and it's important to understand them so we can change them, we can alter them, we can remove the bad habits, and we can implement some good habits into our lives. So I have based this presentation on two books that I would highly recommend that we all read eventually. I'm not saying this is the first priority. I think there are more important books, such as The Demon Lover, that I would prioritize if I had all three books available. But nevertheless, I would still recommend you to read these two books. And if you should choose only to read one, I would recommend to read Atomic Habits by James Clear, because I personally found it more valuable than The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. But again, the two books are both very nice and really useful in practical in everyday life. So I just want to let you know what we're going to talk about today. We're going to go over an introduction to habits, looking a bit deeper into the science of habits, how we can build good habits, also how we can break the bad habits. Then we'll discuss a little bit about inputs versus outputs, what keystone habits are, and what habit stacking is, in case you haven't heard of it before. And then finish off with motivation versus environment. But I think it's useful to begin off with, like, defining the word. What does the word habit mean? It's something we all use, read about it a lot of times, but what does it actually mean? So the word habit, it comes from the Latin habitus, which actually means condition or state of being, appearance, and it comes from another word, which is habere. I hope I pronounced this right, which means to have or to hold. So the word habit actually means to have or to be in a certain condition or state of being, um, whereas we use it today, as something we do. But as we will learn, what we do also comes back to a state of being and actually ends up defining who we are and what we are. because we are not who we say we are or who we claim to be. You know, that I'm a nice guy, I'm a healthy guy, I'm a healthy person, or I'm a kind person. We are what we repeatedly do. And this is a quote: "Excellence then is not an act, but a habit." And this is from Will Durant, in case you know him, from his book, The Story of Philosophy. But it's something that I would really like us to take this quote and scribble in our minds. We are what we repeatedly do. So jumping into an introduction to habits, what is the purpose of habits? Like, why do we do it? Why do we, yeah, why does it even, why do habits even exist? So habits, they are actually automated behaviors, which are partly shaped by our environment and by our experiences. And if you remember back from Isabel's presentation, she talked about all these incredible amounts of information that flood our brains at every single second. The reason why we have habits and why 40% of our daily actions, according to a study from Duke University, consists of habits is to help us to kind of save our brains from information overload and to conserve energy. And I think it's quite fascinating to learn. You know, it's probably more, or in some cases, and probably less in other cases, that 40% of our daily actions are, you know, habitual actions that actually we don't think about. We just do it. 4 out of 10, you know, things that we do, it's automated. Also, habits, as we will come to learn, have incredible power over our lives in general. Even the smallest changes can have a huge impact, and habits, they tend to compound over time. Also, habits shape our identity, because every action that we do, as we have just learned from the quote, you know, we are not who we say we are, or what we or who we claim to be. It's what we do repeatedly. In this way, habits help to shape our identity, and every action becomes a vote for the type of person we want to become. And already now, I want us to have this analogy in mind, that we're talking about voting. You know, in order to win, let's say, a presidential election, you don't need to have all the votes, you just need to have a majority. And it's actually the same with our identity. We do a lot of different actions every single day, every single hour. And, you know, some of the actions we're proud of and we would like to do more of, others we aren't so proud of. But it's not about, you know, hating ourselves or being very mean to ourselves when we do something bad. It's just important to keep in mind that, you know, it's where the majority of the votes that we place through our actions, you know, in what stack are they? Are they towards the person we want to become and want to be? Or are they towards the person that we don't want to be and try to go away from? I want to talk a little bit more about this power of habits and small changes, how they can have a big impact. So this slide is called "Watch the GPS Pilot." And I just want to provide an example from the book Atomic Habits that James Clear, he lays out. Imagine that you are a pilot flying from Los Angeles to New York. And, you know, when you're sitting in the cockpit and you're going through all the manuals and so on, and you are configuring the GPS, accidentally you make like a small, tiny adjustment of 3.5 degrees. It's not a lot. And I want to show you how little this actually is. And I don't know, do you still see my screen now from the presentation, or do you see this angle meter now? You can just confirm.
Angle
We
meter.
see, yes.
You see the angle meter. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's like 3.5 degrees. You know, this is the change. You know, this is the correct course, and 3.5 degrees is like a little bit more than this. This is 4. This is 3. So like you do a small mistake of, you know, putting in falsely a course correction of 3.5 degrees instead of 0 degrees. What happens then? What happens actually is that you don't reach New York City. You go 328 kilometers off target and you reach Washington. So I've included a screenshot here where you can see the blue or the green line is where you were supposed to go. The red line is where you actually ended up landing. 328 kilometers is quite a lot, at least in Danish distances. So small shifts can have a huge impact, and the same goes for habits, and we'll talk more about this through the presentation. So what we do repeatedly matters, and I want to show you this graph, which we can coin 1% better every day. What happens if we just every single day we become 1% better in general? You know, I'm not talking about 1% better at cooking, 1% better at, you know, behaving with our kids, 1% better at work, just in general. Like, it's a very, very small estimate. I think it's like an achievable goal for most. If we become 1% better every day for an entire year, after the year has gone by, we have become 37 times better than we were initially. So this is illustrated by this graph here. You know, this is our starting point. We improve by 1% every single day. After 1 year, we will be here from where we started. We know this principle from investing. For example, you know, at first you invest, you know, $1, then $1 compounds to $1.1, then you invest 1.1, then become 1.4. Eventually, you know, you start investing not $1, but $20 because it compounds. But, you know, in the beginning, it's very slow progress and you don't actually feel it. But eventually, it takes off exponentially. But the inverse is also true. If from today on and a year from now, meaning, you know, the 5th October 2025, you become 1% worse in any sphere every single day, what will happen is that you will basically have, you'll have gone to zero. As you can see here, 1% worse every single day for 1 year equals 0.03 at the end. So you will, like, whatever it is that you become worse at, if it's just 1% every single day cooking, you will not know how to, like, use a knife after 1 year. Really an important mental model that I would like you all to keep in mind. Let's go over the science of habits, like how do they work, what happens in the brain, etc. So when discussing habits and talking about habits, there are what is called a habit loop, and it consists of 4 distinct things. The first one is the cue, which triggers the habit. Then you have the craving, which after the cue has been triggered, you know, you have the craving where you desire a change. Then after the craving, you have the response, where you search for a solution for the craving, and at step 4, you reach the reward and you have the satisfactory feeling. This is how it can be illustrated. Like, it's a 4-step cycle that repeats over and over and over again, and it's from the biggest habits that we do to the smallest habits that we do. You know, we can go through an example. If you go into a dark room, you know, the cue, you don't even think about it because you've done it so many times now, but the cue instantly is it's a dark room, you need light. So the craving, we already jumped there. You want to see things. So you crave that we change from a dark surrounding to a light surrounding where you can see things. Then instantly you search for the respawn. You start searching for the light switch. You flip the light switch and you have the reward. You can now see the room that you're in. Just to go over them again. So the cue is what triggers the start of the habit loop. An example could be an alarm clock in the morning. It could be a certain time of day. It could be an emotion. It could be a smell. And it's really, I can make this a bit personal, but when I read, I think we all have some habits in our lives that we would like to change, that we are not so proud of, others that we are proud of, that we want to eradicate. What really helped me when I understood this habit loop was to look at the habits that I didn't like, that I was doing automatically, and really, instead of just like hating myself or hitting myself with a stick because I did it over and over again, I started to, when I understood this, to look for the cue. What was it that triggered me doing the habit? So just to say that this is not just like some dry theory. It can really help us to take our own habits apart and understand, okay, this is the cue. I can see that now, that makes me crave this thing, that makes me respond in this way to this thing in order that I achieve this end goal. So this is just some examples. It could be an alarm clock that goes off in the morning, which makes some people crave coffee. Or it can be, the time of day when it's a certain time, that you look at the watch and you don't even think about it. You just go instantly for lunch because it's lunchtime. It can also be a smell, you smell some nice food, instantly you start craving maybe fast food, maybe a burger or whatever. It could be also something healthy. More often than not, I think it's the unhealthy things that we start craving. It can also be like you feel an emotion, you feel lonely, and suddenly you have a craving for social interaction. So maybe you grab your phone, or you feel bored, you grab your phone because you're not comfortable with being bored. So instantly you grab your phone and you go on social media, or you start reading the news. Like this is, I would say this is one of my bad habits. I'm really eager to read the news. It's like my social media, but we all have something. Um, the response comes, which is the solution to the craving problem, and the response really bridges the gap between the craving and the reward. So, for me, when I wake up, this is my cue to go get lemon water. I do this every single day. I've done it for many years, and like it's automatic. And if there's no lemons, I have a problem because my habit loop is broken, and I don't get the reward, which is like it's not the same for me to drink water in the morning. I've been accustomed now to having this feeling of the lemon water. It tastes better and so on. Um, Another example of a response could be, when you're triggered by some nice smell, you go past a really busy street with a lot of restaurants, and you want to eat. So what you do is you go on Volt. I don't know if you have it, but like food ordering app or website, and you order some food, DoorDash maybe. Um, or it could also be, that you feel stressed. This is your cue. You crave, to feel unstressed. You crave to become relaxed. What do? You go for a walk. So it's, most often when we talk about habits, it's in a negative context because, we have habits that we want to change. We like to become better, do this more, do more of this, do less of that. But habits also work for us in this way, as I just said, going for a walk. Then the reward comes. And the reward is the outcome that satisfies the craving. This is where we get dopamine, and we will talk more about dopamine because dopamine is what keeps us going. If we don't have dopamine, if we didn't have dopamine in the brain, if dopamine wasn't secreted when we achieved a reward, when we're thirsty, we drank some water, dopamine is not only released in the reward, it's also in the craving. But if we didn't have dopamine, experiments have been done on rats where they like inserted electrodes in their brains and they just cut off dopamine. They had no craving for anything, and they ended up dying of thirst because they didn't even want to go drink some water. So dopamine is really important, and it's important that we understand how it works. Because dopamine, as I said, as I've written in the parentheses here, it teaches our brains if the habit is worth repeating. If we get the dopamine, the brain will say, aha, okay, I need to repeat this later, and you will do it again and again and again and again. So it reinforces the habit and makes us repeat it. And a good habit, and good in the context of the habit loop, it always ends with a satisfying feeling. It can be a bad habit, something that you're not proud of, but it still comes with a satisfying feeling that, the brain feels this sigh of relief. And this encourages the brain to repeat it again next time and to make you go after it. This is also an important concept to keep in mind when we start with a habit. On the x-axis, we have repetitions, the amount of time we do the habit or the action that we want to become a habit on, and on the y-axis going up, we have automaticity. So in the beginning, we have to do repetitions and manually. It's not automated. We have to really think about, when we do something, when we go for a run, or we bring ourselves to work out, or we grab a healthy snack instead of an unhealthy snack and so on. It's manual. As we repeat the actions and go from point A to point B, it becomes more automated. We still have to do it manually, and we still have to put a lot of effort into it, but it becomes more automated. And at a certain point of time, we cross this habit line and we reach point C. And when we have reached this point, we no longer have to think about what it is we do. Like taking the example of the light switch, a small child will really have to think about, oh, it's dark, I'm scared, I don't know what to do. Very quickly, they know dark room means instantly touch the walls, find the light switch, and then, the habit becomes ingrained. And at that point, we have crossed the habit line. and it becomes automated. So this is how it works. Now, I said we would discuss the role of dopamine, and we're going to do that now. So at first, dopamine is released after the action, meaning, I smell some nice food, I instantly go on my phone, I order some food, or I go to the cupboard, the kitchen, I take something out, or something, and when I eat it, I taste it, dopamine is released, as you can see here, with the purple thing jumping out in the reward section. So this post-action dopamine release teaches the brain that the behavior, it could be eating chocolate, is enjoyable and worth repeating. So the brain makes the connection. Aha, okay. When I do this, I get the reward. This is nice. I want to do that again. But as behavior is repeated, the brain begins to make a powerful shift. It no longer is only at the reward that dopamine is secreted, and we get this aha feeling that, oh, this was nice. It actually happens in anticipation of the reward rather than waiting until the action is completed. So now we have the cue, and the time or the distance in time from cue to craving is very quick. So you can see something and instantly you crave it. But actually, two things happened. You had a cue and you had a craving. But the moment you have a cue and you start craving the thing that the cue triggered, dopamine is released. And when the brain starts associating dopamine with anticipation, it means that our motivation to perform a behavior, it's not about the reward anymore. The brain starts craving the action to actually fulfill the promise that will bring us the reward. It's like the brain becomes impatient. The reward comes, but like it's triggered that you now only crave it instead of having the actual thing. It's a good helpful at least to illustrate it in these like 4 charts or examples. So in the A line, this is the first time that you, let's say, have tried to create a trigger or a habit. So the cue comes, goes to the craving, the response, and then you get the reward. You take the chocolate out of the drawer and you eat it, dopamine is released. Now next time you do the habit, and this is not one-to-one necessarily next time. Maybe you have to go through, line A multiple times before the brain transitions to B, but this change happens fairly quickly. Now dopamine is released the moment that you get the craving, as we've just talked about. You have this feeling of desire plus craving here, and it prompts you to, go after the response, to bridge the gap between the craving and the reward. So you start doing the thing. In the case that you don't get a reward, dopamine drops significantly and you feel like, oh, this is worthless. Like maybe you've tried it before, you really want something. I will use the chocolate example again. You want chocolate and you feel really good about, hey, I'm gonna get chocolate now because I saw something that triggered my habit. But then you find out, oh, I don't have chocolate. So you get like disappointed, your brain becomes disappointed, and maybe you even feel it yourself. This is what happens in the brain if you get no reward. Now, if you have a delayed reward in the D line, then you get the cue, you get the craving, you instantly get dopamine release, but then the response takes too long. It takes too long. Too much time goes. You don't get the reward, so you become disappointed. Dopamine falls again. Now, if you then get the let's say the chocolate, you find an extra piece of chocolate somewhere, like in your sock, I don't know, laying somewhere in the room, like you start searching a lot for some chocolate and you find it, then the brain goes, aha, this was worth it. Like I knew it. And then you strengthen this cycle. But this can also be used to our advantage. Like if we become aware of a habit that we do, and we can like almost, when you become really like meta aware of what is actually happening when you do like a pre-programmed automatic action, which is a habit, and you are aware of how it works in the D line, that you get the dopamine release when you have the craving. Dopamine falls because you delay the reward. Then you can actually use this to like your favor, because if let's say that let's use the example with social media, like you feel something or you're bored. I think this, I can relate to this. When I'm bored, I'm not that good at like being with myself and my thoughts, so I instantly grab my phone. I might not go to social media. I might go to the news and start reading news. I don't like that. I have this habit that I cannot be alone with myself, with my thoughts. So I have this dopamine spike. Now, let's say that I've created multiple obstacles for myself that would make it harder for me to go to the news. Let's say I read news from an app, or I go to Facebook on my phone. I have deleted the app, so I can still go to social media, but I first have to install the app, log into the app, and then I can like get the reward, the dopamine reward that my brain craves. If I've created these obstacles that I have to crawl over first, and I can be aware of what is going on, I can use this disappointment in dopamine to actually say, okay, I'm not that motivated anymore actually to do it. Let me just like stop doing it. I won't bother installing the app or doing the thing because I don't feel like it anymore. Like I don't have any motivation. Dopamine motivates us to do a certain action. So it's just a little thing that we can keep in mind to help ourselves. And we have already gone through some examples, but coffee drinkers, they might go through a coffee shop and then they get this smell of coffee and it instantly releases dopamine. They haven't even had their cup of coffee, but they know the smell, and the brain says, haha, we're gonna get coffee now, and prompts you to go into the coffee shop. Or like if you see an interesting ad online or somewhere and you click on it and your brain instantly goes, oh, we're gonna buy something now. A lot of people have a problem with like shopping, overspending online. Dopamine is released when you click the ad and you add something to cart because you haven't even bought the thing yet, but the cycle has begun with B here. Or social media, the phone buzzes. We have this reward of social interaction before even taking the phone out of the pocket, and dopamine is released before we even like see who it is or what it is. Or boredom, as we've talked about, but in the context of snacks, you're bored. So what do? You look into your living room and you see maybe a piece of I don't know, chocolate or whatever snack. Dopamine is released, prompting you to go, get yourself off the couch, go get the snack from the drawer, open it, eat it, and feel good again. But it's the thing, you're sitting on the couch and you just see something or you smell something, dopamine is released saying, hey, go do this thing. Now I want to talk about the 4 laws of behavior change and how we can use them to build good habits. As I said, we probably all have habits that we're not so proud of, and we would like to change them or implement new ones. And we should be aware of the 4 laws of behavior change to make it easier for us to do it. So the first one is make it obvious. Second, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. I will go over each and every one of them. So make it obvious. What does this mean? It means that if we want to start doing something and we want to create a new habit, we should use cues like placing, let's say we want to go running, place the running shoes visibly somewhere, where you cannot go in that direction without seeing the running shoes, in front of your bedroom maybe. So you open the door and the first thing you see is running shoes. To encourage the exercise, it could be placing a book on a pillow when you make your bed, so that when you return to bed and you have to go to sleep, you see the book on the pillow and you're like, okay, I need to read a page now. Or I find it relevant to when I work on my computer or something and I finish the day, open up the tab that you want to go to the first thing when you open the computer the next day. So let's say you want to start reading a blog or something, or more news, or there's something you need to read or watch or whatever. Like before going to bed, open the tab, close your computer. The first thing that will happen when you open it is you'll see it. And you're making it obvious for yourself that, hey, okay, let me do it now. I've also written Dr. Anne Thorndike's experiment. She was a physician, I believe, who did an experiment in a cafeteria, and I believe it was a hospital cafeteria. So it was a regular hospital cafeteria. They had you could buy soda, you could buy, I think it was in the US, water and so on. But what she wanted to see was that, okay, if we create a better environment, not a better environment, but a more obvious environment for healthy choices, what will happen? So what they did was they took bottled water and placed it in many obvious places where there hadn't been water before, or maybe there were sodas before. So like when you went into the cafeteria, you were exposed to a lot of healthier choices, primarily through the sense of bottled water. And what happened was, after some time, naturally people who went to the cafeteria started buying more healthy food. Water sales went up by, I think 20 something percent, and soda sales fell by maybe 15% or something like that. The point is that it was a significant change just by making like the healthy choice obvious. The second point, making it attractive, making, when we're building a habit attractive, is that now that we've learned how dopamine works, we can manipulate it to, come at the right time where we want it to come. So we've all heard of or seen people who do this. When they read a book, every 5 pages they put in a piece of candy or something. So when they read the 5 pages, then they get a piece of candy. And for the brain, the candy is dopamine. The brain gets dopamine. It's excited, and it instantly wants to, of course, cheat, to just skip the 5 pages and get the candy. But you have to be disciplined enough to actually do the thing, of course. But you can help yourself by like making you earn your dopamine. It could be if you do some work. Let's say you say, okay, now I'm going to sit down and do some work for X amount of time. When I've done that, I can listen to my favorite piece of music for 5 minutes or something. We can also utilize something called temptation bundling. And there was an engineering student named Ronan Byrne who he really liked Netflix, watching Netflix, and he didn't really like exercising, but he understood that, okay, I should probably start exercising and making it a habit. But it was really difficult for him. So what he did was he took his computer and connected it to an exercise bike, and he hacked the computer and the bike in such a way that Netflix would only run on the computer if you were cycling at a certain speed. So he forced himself to cycle at a certain speed to let Netflix run. So he bundled his temptation. Like his temptation was Netflix. He bundled it with the habit that he was trying to make or create, exercising more, and it worked. Now, we should also make it easy if you're trying to build a good habit. So 2 things I want to mention here: the 2-minute rule and reducing friction. I want to start with the second one, reducing friction. Whatever we want to do in building a good habit, we should make it as easy as absolutely possible for us, because the more friction that there is, the lesser the chance that we're going to do the actual thing. So in the example with running, or I can use myself as an example, I find it hard sometimes to wake up in the morning and go exercise, but I really want to, because I know if I don't do it in the morning, it will not happen, because then the day starts and this and that, and it will just vanish. So it's still hard for me to wake up in the morning. So I know I need, even though I've been exercising for many years, but I still know that I have to make it easy in order for me to actually complete it and not skip it. Because sometimes I wake up, I'm like, it's cold, I'm like, I don't really want to do it, and I'm a bit tired. But what I do is I put all my workout gear out in the living room. So the first thing that happens when I wake up is everything is there. I don't need to even think about finding the socks, finding the shirt, finding the shorts, finding the hoodie or what it is. It's just there. And I do it consciously because I know that my willpower is not strong in the morning when I'm tired. My brain wants me to go to sleep. But if I put it out in the open, I will more likely actually just put it on without really thinking about it and going down there and like exercising. So it's really important that we reduce friction in whatever it is we want to do. If it's cook healthy meals, it's a huge friction if we want to start doing it and we don't have the ingredients. So we have to really prepare in advance, make sure that all the basics, the ingredients are there, so that once we want to do it, it's at dinner time, we can do it, and we won't have to say, oh, I have to go and buy this, I forgot that, and I also need this ingredient. When it's all there, it becomes easy. The 2-minute rule, where it says fool yourself, it's a rule that's really good to get going. And oftentimes the challenge we have is to actually start something. Once we've started, the minutes quickly go by, and we're like in the zone, and we do the thing. So what we can say to ourselves is, okay, I will just do this for 2 minutes. So it's reading, for example. Just say to yourself, I will just read for 2 minutes, whatever it is. After the 2 minutes, I will put down the book, I will stop, and that will be it. Sometimes you will only read for 2 minutes, but what you will find in most cases is that you will actually read more than 2 minutes, because we have the biggest obstacle is getting started. Once you've got started, it's not an issue. It becomes easier for us. So we can fool ourselves by saying, oh, I will only do this for 2 minutes. What happens is we do it a lot longer than that. And the last point is make it satisfying. There was a certain doctor, Dr. 𝘂𝗶𝗱𝗏, who was working in Karachi, Pakistan, where there was a huge problem with diarrhea, with pneumonia and skin infections and other diseases. And Dr. 𝘂𝗶𝗏 knew that there was a problem with hygiene. And instead of being really like strict and saying you have to, trying to coerce people to use soap or wash their hands, what he did was he partnered with 𝘃𝗽𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, who makes like shampoos, soaps, and so on. And he installed, or not installed, he, through that collaboration, he got really nice smelling and lathering hand soap, and he distributed it widely in the area. He didn't do anything else. He just introduced really nice soap. What happened was that diarrhea suddenly fell with 52% in that region, pneumonia by 38%, and skin infections also fell quite a lot. And this was because suddenly it became nice to wash your hands. You know, if it's not nice, if it's not satisfying to do the thing that you want to do, you will not do it. It's as simple as that. We also use it maybe without knowing today, you know, like those of us who have fitness trackers or like step counters, we track caloric expenditure or the steps that we've taken through a day. Also make it satisfying to, you know, to go for a walk. I get alerts on my watch that like you are, or that you are like 10 minutes of brisk walking and you will have reached your goal today. I don't really have an issue with walking or exercising, but even when I get these small cues, it's like, hey, okay, I actually want to do this because I want to win. I want to get this achievement, which is satisfying to me to have completed my goal. This is also the reason why habit tracking charts or apps work, you know, where we go in and if we remember to use them and actually build a habit of using them, where we can like cross off things, or if we do a to-do list, it's satisfying for us to cross off things that we've done. It's the same thing with when we're trying to build a habit. It needs to be satisfying. So to recap, it needs to be obvious. It needs to be attractive. It needs to be fairly easy to do, and it needs to be satisfying. But most of us probably also have bad habits that we want to change or eradicate. So we can, when we understand these laws, these 4 laws, we can manipulate the laws to like, or invert them to make it harder. So instead of making it visible, we can make it invisible. Instead of making it attractive, we now make it unattractive. Instead of easy, we now have to make it difficult. And instead of, you know, the thing satisfying us, we have to make it unsatisfying. So making it invisible, we need to reduce the exposure to cues. So an example could be like, if you're in the bad habit of really using your phone a lot, I was way too much than I was proud of. So what I could do was, okay, how can I make my phone more invisible when it's touching my leg all day long, basically? Well, I can start with removing the notifications that I receive on the phone, because they always like try to pull my attention in their direction. It worked. I used my phone less because it became more invisible to me. If you have a problem with gaming or something, and you have like a PlayStation or whatever, you know, instead of having it connected to your TV visibly in the living room or whatever, you can just hide it, you know, put it in the basement or somewhere. If you don't want to throw it out, you know, just do not let it kind of communicate to you just by being visible. It can also be, a lot of us, I had for many years the habit of, the first thing I did when I woke up is I took my phone and I excused myself by saying, well, I wake up in this way, the light from the phone helps me wake up, but it was still a bad habit that I didn't want to have. So what I did was I made my phone invisible in the bedroom. I removed it. It's now in the living room. I don't see it. Like I cannot do the thing without then waking up, standing out of bed, going to the living room, taking my phone and bringing it back into bed. We can also make it unattractive. So a way to do this is to identify the true cost of the habit. It could be financial, it could be the emotional cost of a habit, or it can be the opportunity cost. Let's say you smoke, it's an easy example. You smoke, and well, you can say that it also gives you a health cost, like long term, that it will stain your teeth, it will maybe give you lung cancer, it will clog your arteries, it will make breathing difficult over time, and so on and so forth. But it can also be emotional, like, or financial. It costs me a lot of money. Like when I buy a pack of cigarettes every second day for a year, what does that actually amount to over time? But you have to think about this or make it unattractive somehow, being aware of the cost, or whatever the cost is that the bad habit costs you. Also, a really powerful thing is to like create an identity alignment, or change the identity alignment that you have today. A good example that is given in the book is two different people that are offered a cigarette. One is saying, no thanks, I'm trying to quit. The other says, no thanks, I'm not a smoker. The person who says, no thanks, I'm not a smoker, even though they've just started trying to quit or just started not smoking, will in more cases be successful in declining the cigarette and not smoking, because he has already said that it's a part of that person's identity not to smoke. He's not just trying to not to quit. It's not what that person is. And I think with us humans is we really want to be aligned with what we think is our identity. Like if I'm identified as a Christian, there are certain things that I will not do purely because I identify myself as a Christian, and certain things come with that identity. Or if I'm, an athlete, or if I'm a singer, or if I'm a dancer, or whatever it is, or if I'm a productive person, or if I'm a kind person, I'm a kind person. I will not push that person out of the queue because I'm a kind person. That's a bad example, but get the point. We can also make it difficult for ourselves. Increase the friction. Before we had to decrease the friction, now we can increase it. An example could be if you watch too much TV, unplug the TV and remove the batteries from the control. So if you want to watch TV, you have to both put in the plug in the TV and you have to go find the batteries, put in the remote and then turning on the TV. You can delete social media apps. You can still use social media, but you just have to install the app every single time. It becomes tiring. And like you increase the friction and the chance of you not doing the thing. You can also stock up on healthy food at home, so it becomes like impossible. You can go to the point where it becomes impossible to eat something unhealthy. I know someone who was really focused on eating healthy, and he was a healthy person in general, but like he didn't want to ruin his good habits. But he liked chocolate. So what he did was he never ever had chocolate at home. If he ever wanted chocolate, he had to go out of his apartment and go down the block to the supermarket, buy the chocolate, go home, eat it. And he was maybe a bit extreme, because even though if he only ate, let's say, 25% of the chocolate, he would throw it out so that it wouldn't tempt him again later. Maybe he only ate chocolate once a quarter in this way. I don't know. And maybe I wouldn't advocate for throwing food out, but to him, this was what was necessary to really not to make it difficult to indulge in something that he wouldn't allow himself to indulge in, because he wouldn't grab the chocolate in the trash bin. The last point is make it unsatisfying. We can educate ourselves about the consequences of a particular habit. We can also have we talked about smoking already, so like educate what will happen if you continue this, really understand what the habit you are engaging in does to you. So if you are eating unhealthily every single lunch, we often try to fool ourselves and say that, okay, once nothing happens, twice nothing happens. But think about if you do it every single day, 5 days a week for 5 years, like what will the effect be then? The other thing is that we can have an accountability partner. It can be our spouse, where we make a commitment to them and say, you know what, I want to change this thing. If I ever do this, if you see me do it, or I will come to you and say if I've done it, I will have to, I don't know, give you, I don't know, 10 euros or 30 euros or whatever it is, something that you really don't want to do. You could also say to yourself, like, if I smoke and you smoke, I have to donate 50 euros to like a charity that you really don't like, or a cause that you really don't like, don't support. But this still requires discipline, but it helps you because you make it unsatisfying to do the thing. So if you smoke, you're like, okay, I got the smoke, but so what? I have to pay 50 euros now to some organization that I don't like. You can also journal how you felt after you've done the bad habit. Journaling can sound like a big thing, but you can just take your notes app on the phone and write down, today I watched this amount of television or something, and this was how I felt. And just that, you don't have to say I will make it up or something. Just write down how you feel. And when you've done that 20 times or 10 times, it will start becoming unsatisfying doing the thing, because how you will feel afterwards. Changing gears, inputs and not outcomes. We should focus, when we're trying to create a good habit, on the inputs and not the outcomes, but we have a bias towards always focusing on the outcomes. So like, I want to run a marathon, I want to lose 10 kilograms, I want to double my salary, or I want to something. We cannot control the outcome, but we can control the input. We focus too much on the desired outcome, the end product or the ultimate reward, which is way off in the distance. We cannot see it, it's far off, and it becomes demotivating to think about that every single day. Instead, what we should do is we should focus on what we do every single day. So if you want to run a marathon, just start by running every second day and focus on the input, that your target is not to run a marathon, but it's just to run every single day or every other day. A different example could be if you say, I want to lose 10 kilograms, or I need to lose 10 kilograms. Okay, don't forget about the 10 kilograms. Focus on walking daily, and you will reach the goal naturally. I want to give an example with ice cubes. Imagine that you're in a room where it's -3 degrees Celsius, and there's an ice cube on the table. And this is from the book, also Atomic Habits. You slowly do something to warm the room. I don't know, maybe you do it manually. You like start a fire or something, and it seems like nothing changes until it hits 0 degrees. So you raise the room temperature from -3 to -2, -1, 0, and it seems like, well, I've done all this effort to increase the room temperature, and it doesn't really help. But suddenly you reach the tipping point where the ice begins to melt, and you can see that your effort has not been in vain. And when talking about this, it's an important concept to keep in mind is the latent potential. This explains why many people give up too soon when trying to form a new habit, because the initial effort seems to produce no visible results. You start eating healthy for 3 weeks, you still haven't lost any substantial amount of weight. You become frustrated and you quit. Usually this is how it happens. A good example or analogy is also bamboo. Bamboo can spend 5 years growing its roots. So you don't see like any bamboo, but it's really busy growing its roots. Suddenly, after it's finished like laying the foundation or growing its roots, in a few weeks, it can like grow as tall as like more than 25 meters into the air. And this is usually the point where people say, if it's like a person who has reached some level of success, oh, look, like that happened overnight. No, it didn't. There was a long period of time where like somebody or something was working without results. This is illustrating the plateau of latent potential. So most of us think that progress should be, results should be linear, but it's exponential. So at first here, like nothing happens. You do the thing, repeat the thing, week after week, nothing happens. You reach the valley of disappointment, and you're like, is this even worth it? Like, I'm not getting anywhere. But what actually happens is like you're accelerating, but it's just slow in the beginning, and then it starts to grow exponentially, and you start seeing results. But it just takes more time than most of us are willing to invest. we're nearing the end now, 9 slides left. I'll go quickly because my battery is also dying. I want to talk about keystone habits and habit stacking. Small actions can have a big impact. I think we've consolidated that now. Fundamental routines can have a ripple effect. This is what keystone habits are. So it's one habit that you do that have a ripple effect and creating multiple different habits. So it's a habit that, when adopted, naturally leads to multiple positive changes without much conscious effort. An example could be regular exercise. If you start exercising regularly, suddenly you'll start to prioritizing your sleep. You're going to start eating differently. And also you'll probably start prioritizing your mental health. It could also be an example of you start reading, reading anything. You just start reading and taking in knowledge. You'll get a lot of knowledge in a lot of spheres, and that will probably start other habits in other areas of your life. There's also a famous marshmallow experiment. I'm sure a lot of you know it, where children were given two options. One, you can eat this marshmallow now, and then the other group had the chance of, okay, if you don't eat this marshmallow now, but eat it later, you can have twice the amount of marshmallows. And then the researchers went out of the room. They didn't say for how long, but they were out for 15 minutes, and then they came back. Those children that were able to say, okay, I will not eat this one marshmallow and wait for the second one, when they followed up on them many years later in life, they had higher grades, they fared better socially, and they ended up getting into better careers than those who took the marshmallow immediately. Willpower, the point is, willpower can be cultivated and serves as a keystone habit, because willpower will spill over into many areas of life. We also talked about this in the power of human nature, or in the when we talked about human nature, like the power of the will. If willpower is distilled as a habit, it will enable us to stay focused and disciplined when we try to pursue other goals or other habits. And like a Lego, there's a thing called habit stacking, which is a powerful way to introduce new habits where we put them on top of already existing routines. So this could be like, if you wake up every morning and you have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, or you eat something, your porridge, then you can say, okay, after I'm finished eating my porridge, which I do every single day, or eating my breakfast, I will also like spend 2 minutes to write down what I'm grateful for. Not thinking, okay, I need to also start like doing my gratitude journal. I need to find my journal. I need to set aside 15 minutes. You don't think like that. You'll just think, okay, after I've done A, which I do every single day, I'll just start doing B also. This is like what habit stacking is. Or like what I do, like I really want to get early sunlight exposure. I do that with dog walking. Well, it's maybe inevitable, but I go to the fjord, because then I can see the sun, or when I'm like cleaning or vacuum cleaning, I listen to an audiobook. I will have to do the cleaning, so I just stack another habit on top, and it becomes a habit. This is what habit stacking looks like. If we look at it in the context of the habit loop, we have the cue, craving, response, reward. Once we have the reward for one thing, we put another habit, we connect another habit on top of that. And it can be many things, and it's just good to have in mind that this way it can be easier to start doing something new, instead of thinking of it as a distinct thing that we have to separate extra time for and do. Let's just connect it to an existing habit. Environment versus motivation. We shouldn't use motivation to like do something. Like, I'm motivated now to run. Okay, but tomorrow you will not be motivated. And what will you do then? We only should use motivation for ignition. We shouldn't trust it after takeoff. When we felt motivated, we went for a run. That's it. Don't rely on motivation anymore, because it's fleeting. It will come and go. It's affected by your mood, stress, energy levels, weather outside, and so on. We should instead manipulate our surroundings to align with our goals, and making the inputs easy, as we talked about in the slide about 4 laws of human change or behavior change. Examples could be like, put fruits on the counter, hide the junk food, prepare your workout gear in advance. If you want to start learning an instrument, put it out in the open. so that you cannot miss it. Keep in mind Thorndike's experiment with the water bottles. And it's also important to note that we are vulnerable. For example, I don't know if you've ever wondered why supermarkets, they place the fresh produce at the entrance. They do this to encourage healthier purchases, because when customers go in and the first thing they see is something healthy, they'll put that in their basket, and there's a higher chance that they will end up purchasing it. There's a double-edged sword here, because what they found was also that when you've put in like healthy things in your basket size at the first thing, when you go into our supermarket, you're also more likely to put in like something unhealthy later on, because you can justify it for yourself. Like, you are healthy, you have put in the vegetables. I will not bother mentioning the example with Target due to time. Some quotes that I want to read from 5T, 5 Testimonies 53:3. A child may receive sound religious instruction, but if parents, teachers, or guardians permit his character to be biased by a wrong habit, that habit, if not overcome, will become a predominant power and the child is lost. And I hope, or what is helpful to us, is we can have this 1% better or 1% worse for an entire year in mind when reading this quote. This is the case of becoming 1% worse every single day. We know what will happen. Another quote from Christ Object Lessons: he that is unjust in the least is unjust also in much. By unfaithfulness in even the smallest duties, man robs his maker of the service which is his due. This unfaithfulness reacts upon himself. He fails of gaining the grace, the power, the force of character which may be received through an unreserved surrender to God. Living apart from Christ, he's subject to Satan's temptations, and he makes mistakes in his work for the master. Because he's not guided by right principles in little things, he fails to obey God in the great matters which he regards as his special work. The defects cherished in dealing with life's minor details pass into more important affairs. He acts on the principles to which he has accustomed himself. Thus, actions repeated form habits, habits form character, and by the character, our destiny for time and for eternity is decided. So, our habits are really, really important. I know we talked a lot about like healthy habits and not using our phones maybe, but like every single thing that we do, how we talk to other people, how we react to someone being unkind, it's also a part of our habit. Like, our lives are made up of, we are 40% habit, probably more. I also really like this quote: your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values become your destiny. It's a quote by Mahatma Gandhi, but he's not the first one who has stated this. Another way to put it is, our thoughts creates emotion, our emotion creates action, actions repeated form habits, and habits constitute character. And we know that our character is the only thing that we'll really take with us from this earth. So it's quite important. This is a little bit off topic, but I just want to briefly touch on it. Let me see how much better we have, 5%. Something called decisive moments. And it's just to give us a better understanding of how we feel about ourselves every single day. So on a regular day, we really do a lot of choices. And those choices can be categorized, for the simplicity's sake, as good choices or bad choices. And ultimately, what will determine if we've had a good day subjectively, like if I will feel today was a good day, was based on my choices. So let's say when we go up in this chart or illustration, it's a good choice. If we go down, it's a bad choice. So let's say I made a bad choice in the morning, like I used my phone for an hour. I'm now late to work or whatever. I'm not proud of what I did. But I decide, okay, let me have a healthy breakfast. Like, that adds up to it becoming a slightly better day. Then maybe after the healthy breakfast, I do something, I make a good choice again, which adds up to, the day becoming better ultimately. Then I do something bad, I end up here, but then I do something good. And like my ultimate score for the day will be somewhere here. What this also illustrates, this chart, is that it's really important that the first, let's say, 10 decisions that we do in a given day are good ones, because they have the biggest impact. And this is where we have the most willpower also to like make good choices. So when we wake up, it's really important that we get momentum and we do something good, because that will help us to feel after the day is over that it was a good day today. I did some good things. We all do bad choices in our given day, something that we regret, but if we use the 80-20 rule, 20% effort that gives us 80% of the results, then we should have in mind that in the mornings when we go to work or whatever, really make an effort to do the good choices, like do the good habits, because it will decide the day for us, so to speak. I really like having this in mind, because it can explain like why I sometimes feel it's a bad day without really knowing why. We just have the feeling that it was just a bad day, but there was a good explanation to why it was a bad day, probably a lot of bad decisions. A quote that I would like to end with is that every single action that we do on a given day is a vote for the type of person that we wish to become. I think I mentioned this in the beginning. So it's really good that we think about, our character formation as an election. A lot of votes are placed, not 100% votes needs to be placed for the good thing. Just the majority votes need to be placed for the good thing that you are aiming for, in order for that thing to win and to become a part of you. But every single action that we do determines like what type of person we become. And I also often say the quote to myself: what you do, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And that usually tends to be true if we look out in life. Like if you're a really organized person, and you will see that in like the way that you've organized your car, that it's clean, not a lot of rubbish. Probably it'll also be clean elsewhere. If you're a person that really sticks to your agreements, you're always on time. In minor things, you will also be on time on major things. And this is a quote from James Clear. The last slide, and what I would like to end with, is again this one thing, because I think this is one of the most powerful illustrations that I saw when I read the book Atomic Habits. This is from Atomic Habits, not from The Power of Habit. Let's just focus on becoming 1% better every single day. Not, becoming a marathoner tomorrow, run a marathon in 1 week. Let's just try to run a little more, to be a little kinder, to be like a little more patient every single day, because after 1 year you will have made tremendous gains and have become a vastly different person. In the beginning, you'll feel like nothing is happening. We should remember this plateau phase that will happen here, but this is where we need willpower and discipline to keep going, because eventually we will see the results. It's like when we start working out for many months, nothing happens. Suddenly you start looking in the mirror and you can see, hey, I lost the weight, I built the muscle, I can now lift this amount. And it always takes longer than what we anticipate and what you like it to take. So I hope if we take something away from this presentation, it will be this like chart, have it in our minds, and yeah, think about it as we go about our days. Let's close with a word of prayer. I hope I can have 2% battery. Dear God in heaven, thank you for showing us what it really is that constitutes our character, and how it's the small decisions that we do every single day in and out that ultimately determines what we are like as a person, our character, and what and where we will end out in life. We know that there's nothing more important than character building, and today we've learned that our characters are made up of a lot of actions which are done on automation because they've become habits. We all have habits that we're not so proud of and that we want to remove. I pray that this presentation will have given some insight as to how we can help ourselves get rid of those bad habits, but also we have habits that we would like to implement, and also that this presentation would help us to implement those habits and become better in those areas of life. I thank you for the opportunity to present this, to prepare this presentation, and yeah, I hope that it will create a lasting effect on our lives and help us to become better on our journey here on earth. I pray these things and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.